life is always in the way. I have my career. I can't try for survive. I have my career. I have my kids growing. I can spend time with my kids, make sure they're okay. Don't have time for survive. You always make an excuse.
This is gonna hurt. It's time for the Suffering Podcast.
And trying to figure out what's going on there.
During my shooting, so I spoke. It was an officer on the desk. He sat there and had to listen to us calling out shots fired, and he's sitting. It's like being held down and continually being punched in the face.
Yes.
You know, and the same thing would go with your dispatch.
Good dispatchers don't get enough credit.
No, they don't.
They don't.
They don't.
And the thing is, though, but I think we're all part of a puzzle that makes a successful
Community.
Right, community. And if the dispatcher is doing his job, the cop is doing his job, the leadership is doing their job, and even the public's doing his job, we're all successful.
It's a cumulative effort. You know,
Absolutely.
everybody's got to have their hand in
Absolutely.
there
But I
somehow.
think that sometimes the dispatcher doesn't get enough credit for what they do and what they have to handle. I've been there. You got 9 phones ringing. You got 20,000 people calling, complaining, and saying this is going on. You have the cops, and you have 2 guys in there that are trying to make it all come together. It's a tough
Especially
job.
like with a fire. How many times do people call 911 when there's a fire? You know, dispatcher, they get the first call of a fire. They send a fire department out. They send a police fire. Now you get 97 more calls.
We got
That's
it.
exactly what happens.
it's-
That's
exactly.
exactly what happens.
It's
And you're
dispatch-
trying to dispatch companies while the phone calls are still coming in.
If you're calling about the fire, we got it. If you're calling about the fire, we got it.
But you must have had some very proud moments as a fireman. 27 years. It's almost in an inner city. It's almost impossible to not have those very, very proud moments. If you were to pick out one, what do you think it might be?
And you rose rank too.
Yeah,
he's-
unfortunately, I retired as a battalion chief.
Oh, very nice.
First
Yeah.
Puerto
He
Rican
was
battalion
amazing.
chief in
He
the
was
city's
amazing.
history,
So
which
he
makes me very
had
proud.
some hooks.
Drew,
Yeah, I had some hooks.
He had
we
some
got
hooks.
another Puerto Rican in the house.
Yeah, we talked about.
He doesn't speak Spanish. He's from Hoboken.
Mike, we did-
I speak homo. I speak Spanglish.
Spanglish.
Yeah.
We did talk about the hooks like in another episode.
True. You gotta have the hooks. You gotta have a good rabbi.
Yeah, see,
I haven't heard that term in a
Mike,
long
That's a great
time.
term.
That's a
right?
great
That's an
term.
old school term.
That's an old school. Who's your rabbi? Yeah, that's one I haven't heard. But what do you think your best moment as a fire?
You know, the
Fire
truth
memories.
is, I don't have any one particular. The whole career to me was just my best moment. I had so many times and so many. The fire department has given me the ability to help people where, quite frankly, I would have never had that opportunity. So there's not one particular moment. I've been in fires. I've pulled people out. But quite frankly, to me, it was the same when, we get a call, the third call from an 85-year-old senior who's saying that she hears, something crackling in her house, and she's only calling us because she's lonely.
Yeah.
And so we sit there and we talk. Those were as gratifying as running into a burning building and pulling anybody out. So I think it's a collective thing of the whole job. It's just the whole job is extremely satisfying. I'm very lucky that I was able to be a part of it, and especially, and I know we fool around about Hoboken, but Hoboken's a unique animal to me.
yeah.
It really is. And,
We
and
break the balls, but
Yeah.
we are very serious about Hoboken.
we've learned that a lot through Mike. I mean, as much as we love to break Mike's balls and everything.
It's so much fun.
Hoboken is a community.
Till the beast comes out one of these days.
Hoboken people are like this.
Yeah.
They don't,
We take a lot of pride, and quite frankly, I'm not-
especially like you said, growing up in the projects of Hoboken.
Yeah.
It's not like Hoboken now.
no.
This
$2,000 for a closet.
whatever they want to call it, the yuppie community or whatever. I mean, Hoboken is really on the rise now. But back in the day,
You got to survive.
yeah,
And that's one of the questions that was asked to me by Jeff Probst. Is like, what makes you think you're going to be a good survivor? I said, I've been fucking surviving my whole life. I had to navigate which way I walk to school so I don't get my ass kicked.
Yeah.
That's the way it was back then. And
Mike
you
was
know-
you're always well respected. A lot of people a lot of people looked up to Mike. They
Well, I
really did.
appreciate
why is he like
Yeah.
you? Why is he like you then?
What do you?
Okay, go ahead, Kev.
Now it's
Segue it.
Now it's. I'll
I was gonna listen.
segue.
I swear the puzzle. I was gonna segue it into the. I picked up on that.
What we found, all the three of us here, is when it's time to hang up your fire boots, it's hard to turn that key into the off position. It's never it's like one day, all right, it's time to retire. How do you just turn that off? What was that like for you?
Hard.
First of all, you think you're never going to retire, especially when you're younger. And, you have the older guys and they say it's a young man's job. It's a young man's job. And I go, bullshit, man. I'm going to be here forever. I'm going to do 35. I'm not leaving until I'm 65. I love this job because, quite frankly, you get to go and hang out with your boys for 24-hour periods. And you're part of that club.
I
It's
always
hard.
said if you love what you're doing, you never consider it a job.
I never felt that I was going to work.
Like you said, I mean that was perfect. You go hang out with the boys.
Right.
I consider my career in law enforcement just going and hanging out with the guys.
Exactly. I never went to work because I loved it so much, and I mean that. And I always tell the young guys now, how you feel now. Always remember that. It may get hard sometimes. It may become a pain in the ass sometimes, but remember the feeling you have now because there's no other job that's ever going to give you that feeling. And you know the truth is, when you know, you know.
Yeah.
Just like I remember when I was at that time, I could have stayed 30. Things were going on that were out of my hands. And I said, you know what? It's time. And it is a young man's job. And sooner or later, you have to turn over the reins to a younger buck who's ready to go out there and do what you probably did 20 years ago, that right now that you don't have it all in you to do.
That's a real interesting perspective. You know, you're not so much hanging on to a career you love, is you're given the opportunity to have give somebody else the joy that you have experienced.
Exactly.
That's a really honorable thing to look at it that way. You know what? I don't think I ever looked at it that way. Like, fuck those younger guys.
Yeah. And listen,
Let them learn on their own.
Yeah,
Yeah.
fuck those younger guys.
but listen, I always say, if you become a civil servant, whether you're a police officer or a fireman, you hit the lottery, man.
Yeah, you did.
Well,
I really believe that.
It's funny. People, always say, "Oh, the residents, I pay your salary,"
Yep. Thank you.
and that was that. I mean, that's one of the most, I want to say, disrespectful things they could say to you.
Yeah.
But in all honesty, they do pay your salary.
Yeah, but they don't.
I mean,
pay,
they
they don't
that's
pay for the aftermath. What we have to
But-
deal with
but here's the-
mentally.
right.
You know what I'm saying?
But
Like,
the truth is, I don't think, and I don't want to speak for you guys, I wasn't there
For the
them to
money.
pay- right.
Yeah.
It wasn't because of that.
same here.
It's a means to an end.
Right.
loved it.
We love that, we get paid, and it gives us an avenue that we can be at a job we love and raise our families. The truth is, quite frankly, I would have probably done it for free.
But you did Survivor for the money.
Yeah, actually, technically, I did it. Listen, man.
So that's called a segue.
That's a segue. So
My segment was better. The puzzle.
before we get into the survivor part of Mike Turner, you turn that key to the off position. I know you don't shut down. Did you ever stand in the middle of whatever room and go, what the frick do I do now?
Actually, no. I had young kids. I was very involved in my kids' life. I loved being. I'm a family man. I got involved with my kids' life as I was before. Because as a fireman, that's the other thing people don't realize. When you're a fireman or a police officer, it gives you the ability to maneuver your schedule in a way that you can spend a lot of time with your kids, never miss their games. And so I just continued to do that because my kids were 10 and 11 at the time when I retired. So I went, I was involved in my kids' lives.
See, that's something as a police officer I miss because I didn't have that opportunity to manipulate my schedule like that. So when I retired, the commitment that I made to myself was, now I'm going to, and I was very fortunate. It's as bad as my situation was, there's a blessing to it.
True.
The blessing was absolutely I get to spend that more time with my children.
Right.
But see, I mean, I was lucky enough to work in the town that I lived in.
So it
So
was
if
easy-
my
it was-
kids had
yeah,
a game,
well,
you just keep your radio on and you go down and watch your kids' game.
Yeah, I was very fortunate that 24, 72-hour schedule, I was able to go to everything or switch my schedule to so I worked for somebody and I never missed anything. I was fortunate. So when I retired, I'm not going to say, it's a funny thing. Either guys try and hang on and keep going to the firehouse or guys just fall off the cliff and they don't come back. I chose not to be one of the guys, and there's nothing wrong with it. I just chose not to be one of the guys that kept hanging out because I thought it would hurt me too much to keep going back and seeing what I missed. So when I left until 10 years later.
It's
And
like seeing that old girlfriend that you loved, right?
yeah, it sometimes it hurts a lot, and maybe you don't want to regret it. So it's just better to remember the way it was and just move
Like
on.
a Band-Aid.
Exactly.
Right off.
That's for me.
That's
That's
actually
what,
great,
That doesn't
yeah.
work for everybody, but that's the way it was for me.
Now, did you continue to, were you living in Hoboken as you were a fireman?
I lived there until 90, and then I moved out to raise my kids.
Okay. And
You didn't want to raise your kids in Hoboken.
And that's the crazy thing, right? Here's the crazy thing is that
See, Hoboken's a great place, but I don't want to raise my kids
the thing
there.
is, that it wasn't a great place growing up. We thought it was a great place, but then
It's-
we
like
don't.
you
We
said,
always
it's all
want,
you knew.
right? But we always want better for our kids. So we assumed that better was the suburbs. Better was a place where white picket fences. But the truth of the matter is, better is just in the eye of the beholder.
Yeah, exactly.
The truth is now that I raised my kids. I raised them in this. I didn't give them other things that they could. The street smarts, to be understanding when people are watching you, not to walk and always be aware of your surroundings. They lost that element. They gained a lot of things, but they lost that element. And now Hoboken's a cool town. My kids come back. My son's living there. I'm back in Hoboken. It's a crazy thing. You kind of ran from it a little bit to raise your kids, and then all of a sudden you migrate back, and it's still the town you remember. Maybe even a little better,
Well,
maybe a little worse, but still there.
human beings, in order to survive, all right, you are born with certain instincts inside of you, and the better life gets, the duller those instincts get.
True.
Like, you probably moved out of Hoboken and you relaxed a little bit, and
You
when you
weren't
went,
as aware of your surroundings.
Right.
100%.
and then when you went back, you're like, it was probably muscle memory at that point, and then you have this unique opportunity not only to showcase your survival skills that you learned growing up in Hoboken and being a Hoboken fireman. How the hell do you get on Survivor?
I mean, really, I mean, when did it start? Did you like watch it and say, well, I'm going to be on that show?
I've always been a Survivor fan. Since the first day we were at the firehouse, I hear about the show. They're going to give $1 million to these people. They're going to hang out and they're going to vote. It just was extremely intriguing to me. And then I watch it and I'm hooked. I'm hooked on the show. But I just watched the show. But I think I'm a super fan. I think I'm the biggest Survivor fan there ever was. But I just watched the show. I never looked at the things afterwards. I'm not a super fan. I'm a big fan. I found out what super fans are. However, life is always in the way. I have my career. I can't try out for Survivor. I have my career. I have my kids growing. I can spend time with my kids, make sure they're okay. Don't have time for Survivor. You always make an excuse. Well, once my son was almost in his senior year of college, season 40 comes on, and I said, I'm sitting there with my girlfriend at the time. Says, you know what? Fuck this, man. I've been saying I want to try out for Survivor. I didn't think
That's
I could.
awesome.
And you're how old at this point?
57.
That's great.
I got to be honest with you.
That's amazing.
At
That's no
57,
joke.
At 57, to decide that you want to do, because it is a physical challenge.
Mike's a machine.
Except
He's a
that I didn't
machine.
think I was old. That's the problem. I didn't know 57 was old. When I looked in the mirror, I was delusional. I still saw 25-year-old Mike. I was a dumbass.
Mike, I hate to break this to you.
I know.
57-year-old. You're not a spring chicken.
I know. I didn't see it. Listen, I was looking through the rose-colored glasses, and I saw.
You're legitimately 8 years away from collecting Social Security.
I know. And then I think about my father at 57. I go, he was an old fuck. I can't believe that I'm that old.
Well, I ran into a couple kids that I used to play little kids football with, and my father was our coach. And I'm like, they're like, oh yeah, your father was like old back then. My father was like 35.
We
back
thought that
then.
was old.
That was old.
I think it's great you just came to the conclusion that day. I'm going to do it. That's
so
great.
We will watch it, and Jeff comes on like he always does at the end of a season.
the end of the season,
and if
yeah.
you want to be on Survivor, go to see. And I was just sitting there. I got on my phone, and I go to the CBS website, and I said, fuck it. And I started filling out an application, half-ass. And then it
Hoboken
says,
style.
right, I do the application, and quite frankly, I'm not even sure how well I
Survived
did it.
this.
Yeah, how I did
Hey,
it.
Jeff, just
And
put me
meanwhile,
on the
I
show.
think
You're
I'm-
getting
I
jacked
think
up.
at this point, I'm putting in the greatest Survivor application of all time. It's how delusional I was.
There was a lot of this and that's in there.
Right, yeah. So I'm like, oh, they're going to love me. But meanwhile, I'm saying
I'm a shoo-in.
80,000 people a year try out for this show. They pick 20, 18.
okay.
So,
Wow.
and then it says, you need to upload a video. Meanwhile, this is how messed up I am. I'm thinking they want me to upload a video that I already have. I didn't know how to make a video. So I go to my camera roll, and I accidentally upload this stupid video of me singing on a ladder to my girlfriend at the time, and I couldn't get it off. I said, fuck, how do I can't. Fuck. I just sent it.
Now you see, all right.
It was 36 seconds long. I never said my name. I sang Always and Forever. And I said, oh, well, what are you going to do? Okay, they're going to call me anyway. 4 months later, I get an email.
Now, what was
say-
that like? Stop there.
Oh, my
Stop
God.
there. You send in
This is
the
great.
application
This
of
is
application.
fantastic.
Somebody on the other end receives this. They're going, hey, Jane, look what the fuck this guy just did.
That's what they had to say.
We need this guy on
That's
the show.
what, I'm thinking, I'm like saying, I ain't never going to be called.
Well, you got some guys that are trying to do the whole Survivor thing. They're eating worms.
Exactly. And they put on a production.
They put on a production.
Not me. I didn't say my name.
Yeah.
I didn't say my name. I didn't say I sang.
That's your hook, right? That's what you're
I,
rapping.
but you know,
rabbi.
It may have been my hook, but I didn't know it was my
Oh,
hook.
my
Listen, I had no idea. And being a Hoboken guy, I get an email. First thing I think is what? I'm getting fucking scammed.
Yeah.
Somebody's fucking pulling my line.
Who's fucking
Scamming me
pulling
right
my
now?
chain?
And I don't even open up the email. The next day, I say to it was a Saturday, I say to I think I got an email from Survivor. And she goes, what does it say? I go, I didn't open it. She goes, what the hell's wrong with you? And so she goes, open it. So I open it up, and it was from a casting producer, and they said they were interested. Was I interested? And so I said, Yeah. So I emailed back and I said, well, we need a real video from you within 72 hours. But I already fucked up because I already wasted 36 of those hours thinking it was a scam. So I had like 24 hours to put a video in. I got my daughter
spears in the
there. I
backyard.
got my daughter in there. I'm yelling at my wife. And I finally said, you know what? I'm just going to be me. Let's do it. Just film me for 5 minutes. I'm going to talk. I'm going to walk around the house. I'm going to do this with my family. And that's all I did. And then
It's probably one of the more original ones they
I
got.
was gonna say they probably knew you were real.
If I'm being really honest, they're in the casting room right now. They have my video up and they're laughing at it. They're saying, "What the hell was he thinking?"
I'm surprised that it hasn't made it onto like YouTube yet.
Actually, I put it on after the season. I put it on my Instagram, and it like 100,000 views within the first 2 days because people like saying, "Get the fuck out of here!" That's not what the video said. So, and that was it. And then 3 days later, Jeff Probst, who is a guy that I seen on TV, who I feel like is my friend because you watch him so much.
Exactly.
Is FaceTime in my house to talk to me about Survivor.
He's really that involved in the
He's
production.
very involved. And listen, I'm going to say this, and I mean this with all my heart. Jeff Probst is the most original, down to earth. Exactly what you see is what you get. He loves Survivor. He's into Survivor. I thought he was amazing. He's everything I thought he was and more. It was an amazing experience because I was so happy that he is exactly what I thought he was that we see on TV.
But you know what? He's like an antagonist though. He like at the tribal councils though.
Of course.
He lays in with and he sees everything that's going on.
Yes.
I mean, does like Jeff Probst sit like in a room and watch every? Because I mean, there's 24 hours of
we don't know. The
Yeah.
truth is, we don't know any of that.
because he knows everything that's going on. He knows
got
every
to.
I would think he does, but we don't
intricacy
know
of
that.
every argument, every conversation. He's got to know because when they go to tribal council, Jeff Probst brings up like the weirdest shit that you barely even see on TV.
Right. I'm sure he's brought up to speed as to what's going on, but we don't know that out there. We're out there just playing the game, and what you see is us out there. That's really it. There's nothing other than there's no any kind of like coaxing us into doing anything. We're not getting fed. It's as real as you see, man. I mean,
No, you have to go through an audition process beyond your amazing video.
I can't believe that didn't bring me in right away.
Yeah, right. They must,
I think it's great.
So what's the audition process like?
Well-
Because I imagine you have 80,000 people. It's probably brought down to 1,000 people. And how do you become?
You just go. There's a selection process, and you go through the steps. If you go through the first producer, then you go talk to Jeff. Jeff either gives you the high five, and then you just go down to you talk to the CBS execs, and then they make a decision. And the truth is, you really never know what's the part that got you through or what they're looking for. You just are yourself, and then you finally hear, whether you're on or not.
Did you have to meet with like Les Moonves?
No.
No, you never got that high.
Never got that. high.
So but I'm sure they do an in-depth background check on you.
Yes, I mean that's without they do psychological. They do.
No, not even that. It's like, listen,
this
if
person
Mike
real?
if Mike DePalma was going to try out for that show, they'd get about 3 pages and go, yeah, we can't have this guy on.
Or they may say, "Holy shit, he's gonna make great TV. We gotta have him on."
Me and you will just talk now. Let
No,
them
I'm
talk.
just-
Me and you.
no,
Listen,
I'm-
I'm on your team.
No, you see what I'm saying? It's like, if you were
Being the elephant in the
if
room.
you were promoting, racist material, obviously they can't have you on a show.
Yeah,
that
they
type of
absolutely
in-depth.
obviously they're gonna make sure that you're not some kind of. First of all, you gotta make sure you can't beat anybody up, stuff like that. Obviously, but for me to say I know exactly what they're looking for, I don't know.
Right.
I don't know. I just know that I went through the process.
I would be interested.
And unbelievable, they thought I was sane enough to be on the show.
Well, in order to try
You
out,
fooled
and
them.
I fooled them.
especially the way you gave your application, and there's sanity is debatable.
True.
Sanity is
Oh,
debatable.
I got a fresh head because I'm from Hoboken and we think we're something special.
But it worked for you.
Exactly.
But it worked for you. Now you find out, what's that conversation like with your significant other?